Okay.
Eddie Bell, present.
Tony Benedetti here.
Donna Kopecki, present.
Eric Fisher here.
Tiffany Hughes here. Lisa Craddock, fill up here. Kevin Farland here.
Brady Oxender here.
And John emailed me just a couple minutes ago. Apparently he has been trying to email and didn't realize that his emails aren't working, so he emailed, I'm assuming from his personal, and was asking if we had one, so I did just advise him.
Oh, I sent, yeah, I sent to his.
I'm thinking he's having some issues, so I'll
Okay.
see if I can get him some better. I know we all had that same problem, so we're, yeah.
Still having it. Yeah.
Yes, we do. So I don't know what the deal is, why we can't get that figured out, but it's not you, it's.
Have they addressed it? The tech people?
It's a process that we don't have, even though we have instructions, we don't have really good instructions. And so when we're putting it on, we think it's working and it's really not working. So, and it works, it's just apparently, we just aren't doing it right. When we're going, I mean, I think that's kind of like, it's do this, do this, do this, and it works. But I don't feel like maybe the instructions are saying. There's nothing wrong with it, it's just, we're not doing it right. You mean you do it.
When you say you, do you mean?
All of it, like myself,
Each of us.
or, yeah, I
Okay.
think it's, because I don't think there was an issue with the actual email. There
Right.
was an issue with, you have to use like the Outlook, you have to use a certain thing that it doesn't really tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe to ask them to update their instructions
Yeah.
and send you new instructions for how to do it for Mac, how to do it for PC,
Yeah.
and I would imagine that would solve everybody's problem.
Exactly, because you have to do it a certain way, and for whatever reason, none of us do it, we all do it the way that it appears that you should do it, and it's not the right way. But when you do it the right way, the way you're supposed to, it works. Whatever way that
We
is.
just have to figure out.
Yeah, I can get emails on my computer but can't send them. And then I can usually send emails on my phone, but not this week.
Weird.
By the way, your email you're trying to send me the other day came in very late, so, you know, like 6 hours, 7 hours later. As we would fire off your email, so it did go through, this was very.
Okay, so it just took,
Yeah.
okay.
Stuck on queue.
Well, yeah, I got it, yeah, it was stuck in my outbox for 6 hours, I guess. All right.
Never. Maybe,
Debatable.
it's debatable.
All right, so let's jump in. Let's talk, we all went last meeting and looked at the area where we're thinking about for a shelter. And it looks like some folks did some work. So my hope is to try and narrow down and get on the same page as far as what for a shelter we're looking at so that we can start to put some kind of a price menus together to present to council. So who wants to talk?
Why don't you walk you through what I put together?
Perfect.
So this was just taken from the Google, and it's very faint, but there is a shelter over here in the corner, but it really didn't read because there wasn't sidewalks, there wasn't a street, so, but I just included it. There's plenty of room. Basically, that's all that's saying, is plenty of room. Then this sketch is showing a 20 by 24, which would at the top, which would basically be a 2-car garage kind of size. And the picnic tables are 6 feet long. I think that's what we talked about before. And so there's 4 would go under a 20 by 24 or 24 by 24 shelter. 6 would fit under like 34 by 20. And then the last one, which we were talking about when we were out there, 20 by 40, you could actually get 8 picnic tables under that. So after I did that, I think it maybe 20 by 40 is a little bit too big. Because I don't know that we need 8 picnic tables unless you want one end of it open for, I don't know, buffet table, a band,
Bigger is always better.
that kind of thing. So that's what that drawing is. Then from JPM Structures, their largest, so I got a quote from them, their largest shelter is 24 by 24, but I thought, well, we'll go with the 20 by 20, and so they just gave 3 breakdowns on price of what that size would be, so that, I mean, that would only fit like 4 picnic tables under it. If we want to go to something larger, then we'll need to go to another, I don't know who that was. You looked at.
I just added these right here. This is their 2021 prices. That's what I gave you guys, that extra little sheet. And And those are as basic gets. This is not installation, this is nothing. This is how much the, basic square, you're seeing what it is, I did not do it in color. I know she's got the one picture. If you move all the way to the bottom, the thing that's starred where it says colonial, the picture that you see is the colonial. Do you see the picture?
These prices, are they just for the material?
Just for the material, that's not even shipping. Shipping is about 12%, he said? Okay, yeah, so you're talking a random structure. Those are the 4 different sizes and the 4 different prices. And then if you remember right, the largest one that you could do was about 18 to 20,000 for the concrete, if we chose to do that,
Okay.
which I would do, but that's me. And then I've asked her for a couple other sizes for a concrete pad, just to kind of get an idea. But if you cut it in half, like if we're, not half, but I guess 20 by 24, you're probably talking 10 grand for concrete. So, and then each one between 10 and 15. And then you still have to hire somebody to build it, if you go that direction.
I was gonna say, so with the JDM prices, those are installed,
Because we're installed.
but you do have to do the concrete pad.
Yes.
You have to put in the pad or whatever you're gonna do for base, but those, and they're just down in Grove City, so, I don't think they have it. That would be delivered to the site, installed. And then these versions here, he had priced,
I was like, I hope not. No, I told him, I'm like, we always have to email. Do you want your own table?
that's good.
Do you want to speak after? You guys okay with that?
Thank you.
I don't know. It's really close to one.
We've all had the email issue, we had that conversation a minute ago, we gotta get the better instructions.
And then these were just the 2 versions that we priced, the Highland with stain structure, or wood, pressure treated stain structure, or the Highland with a vinyl columns, and then the Alpine, which is a lot more rustic looking. I had asked them for a price on what they call the Cape Cod, which looks more like what's actually all those houses down in the new area. And I was like, oh, that would be perfect, but they're redesigning it, so we didn't have to give it a price. But I thought, well, at least the rustic one, we can start to look at that, I think is more appropriate for the area we were talking about by the hidden pond or kind of the black sycamore lawn, so that area. And these all have metal roofs and, yeah, that's what I had in price, a metal roof,
Okay.
as opposed to a shingle roof.
So Beth, the largest one they have is not necessarily, not because it's cheaper one, but if you wanted to do a 20 by 40, they don't have that particular size.
Correct.
Okay, would they, do you think in your discussion with them, they'd be willing to be the installer? I mean, that would be a different one?
Oh, no.
No?
No.
Okay.
So I think, I'm taking over Brady's thing, but you know I always do. So I think that is probably the first discussion. Obviously there's, I know that there's contractors that build barns and build all different things. I mean, you could also try a third option, just to have somebody custom build something, do the concrete pad, one vendor that does, hires out for the concrete, hires out, builds, it's not a barn, but a structure. Yeah, just like a general contractor type thing. I know that there's people out there that do it, because my aunt had a similar thing done. But furthermore, size-wise, what does everybody, because when I saw, I want a structure, everybody knows that. I'm not hung up on this size, whatever. I think it needs to be large enough that, what is our main goal for it?
Right.
I think that's gonna be, if we do it too small and then we find out that it's not, this is a lot of money to spend to realize, oh, if we would have just spent $10,000 more money, we could have twice as, big. But these are much prettier than a basic solid structure. So, I don't have, I don't really have an opinion. My opinion is, what is everybody else's opinion?
I think it should be big. Think of the block party. We're gonna have a huge block party and, 8 picnic tables is way better than 6, I think, but.
And also keeping in mind that we have 2 companies. There's certainly more than 2 companies
Yes.
that do this. I would agree with with Eddie. I think when we walked out and, you know, we're all standing on the corners and saw the size of 20 by 40, I thought that was appropriate for, you know, for the space we were in. And I think, again, you know, eight tables is 8 families. That's not a ton.
Right.
So can I ask what the timeline is for starting construction?
None.
No, okay. So, I'm wondering though, like, with construction materials being twice as expensive as they were last year, like, if we wait until spring, would it be half the price?
I wish I would not have.
Afford, you know, I mean, not half the price, but significant.
A fun fact, if I can find the 2020
Early ones, 20.
prices, this is actually $1,000 lower
Oh,
this
okay,
year
that's
than it
good.
was, but this isn't building it. So
Yes.
these are the construction prices, and this is very, very similar to what it was in 2020.
Okay.
So, and because that was, I didn't want to go off the 2020 prices because that's what I've been doing, so I actually asked him if he could send me the new ones.
Are these composite materials? Does anyone know? I mean, I see a metal roof, but
I've looked at
that would
it.
explain why it's not usually.
Yeah, and my preference would be to not use lumber
Oh, yeah, I agree.
at all, just because it won't last as long.
Right.
So getting back to, I mean, thinking about size, what other thoughts are there on bigger, smaller?
I was thinking smaller. Well, I think too, maybe it depends on how many we're doing. We do some a large and small, I mean, if we're talking about putting them in more places.
I think we were just talking about the one place for this one, right? So I think that one should be big, and yeah, I agree that the other ones probably could be a lot smaller, but I think this way there's a big pavilion, and then there can be other smaller ones.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think for,
I personally think that it's a little too big, the 20 by 40. It's too big
And-
for that space.
And then you've got the 22 by 24, which is basically what,
Well,
I think there's
I
not
like the 22 by, or 20 by 30, the middle.
Or, yeah, I mean, or something around that 34, 30 or 34.
I know it's
Is
not
that
much
is
smaller.
that basically the, oh, but the pad's bigger. Wait a minute, I'm confused. 20, these are all 20 by 24 structures,
Right. Well,
but then we
so,
would just do the pad bigger, yes?
well, no, I don't have a price on that, 24,
Oh.
20 by 34. So I drew up the 20 by 40, and I was like, wow, 8 picnic tables. And I drew up the 24 by 20, and I was like, well, that's only 4. And I'm like, okay, well, if you're gonna put 6 in there, what would be an appropriate size for 6 tables?
So we've got to find somebody that has a 20 by 34.
ish, yeah.
Ish.
Which, yeah,
So-
there were a ton of pavilion, you know, manufacturers on, that we could be looking into.
Yeah, I mean,
And it
this-
would be, I guess, if you want steel, do you want like laminated wood, do you want a vinyl? I mean, there's also all different types of materials.
Yeah, I mean, this gable roof structures one has a 20 by 30.
Can't remember what that one was.
But, so, I mean, I have to, we don't need to fit in the boxes we're looking at, right? We need to decide the size we want, and then we'll go find someone who can make it that size. So Tony, you thought that when we were standing out there, that was too big?
To me, for that space there.
Well, I think we were talking about 4 picnic tables in that space. It
4 to
seemed
6,
like, wasn't it?
4 to
So it
6,
seemed,
yeah.
4 picnic tables seemed good, but then we put 8 in that space.
You could put 8, you wouldn't necessarily have to.
Right.
I think from experience in other parks I've worked with, you're gonna find that it will not go underutilized. And what you find is there's an odd relationship between how, the larger it is, the more use you get out of it, and when you may not fill it all the time, which will definitely have that space for when you need it. Whereas when you have a smaller pavilion, you'll find that although maybe perhaps you can put 4 picnic tables in there, the load may be 2 families because they want to spread a little bit, right? And it precludes other families from joining just by that kind of behaviorism. So bigger is always better. Buy as big as you can, kind of like a TV.
Well, but I also think,
It's
you know,
used.
you could also bring in, you know, if you're doing something, the.
Like chairs and
canopy-
stuff?
Well, no, the canopy, you can add on the canopy for a big event.
Right, or ready to attend, or
You're
attend.
gonna do that anyways. You're gonna
I
find
just-
a big, but you're gonna do it
Right, I mean,
anyway.
that's why I'm thinking middle of the road. My issue, like I said, is I just look at that corner and I see a big, I don't.
There's a lot of space there. It'll fit the
well,
space fine.
There is and there isn't. You know, it's like putting a big
Well,
thing right on the corner.
What are we
That's my
trying,
objection to the-
right, what are we trying to use it for? Because, I mean, I can tell you, when I've gone to Hoff Park and when I've gone to numerous parks, I'm usually going to like a cousin's birthday party or something. This would do me no good with 4 picnic tables with my family.
Right.
I'm just saying, when I go with, and again, I'm only one person, but I'm thinking, my cousins, my aunt and uncles, all of that, 4 picnic tables would be like, okay, where's the rest of the park? We would be bringing in tents and chairs and everything else, because my immediate family is 20-some people plus.
And remember when when we were standing there, there was that whole additional section before you got before you got to the sidewalk of space.
But if we're looking for small, intimate, where there's only 4 picnic tables, because we don't want those, I mean, I'm just, I'm being devil's advocate here, because maybe we don't want
So
that.
I'll say that this, over the 4th, I was at my in-laws in Indy. We went to the closest park to them. There was a shelter with 4 tables and there was a family there. A single family taking a single table. And we said, let's keep driving. And we drove further back and there was a bigger one with probably 8 or 10 tables. And there was a family there and we said, cool, let's go there. And we were at this side and they were at this side and nobody seemed to have a problem. We were uncomfortable sharing
The
Yes,
small one.
with 4.
that's how it works.
We were perfectly comfortable sharing with 8 or more.
So you'll find that with this size, you'll have 2 or 3 families that regularly use it. You only fill it up when you have a larger group, but it'll be there when you have a larger group. What I think you'll find is you'll be sad if you put a 24 by 24 or so. You'll be like, damn, for a little bit more money, because there's an efficiency with putting in, more concrete, putting in a larger space. It'll save you money. You'll end up, the demand will be, hey, why didn't we just put it, we'll have to put in a second one or do something else. There's plenty of space there. It won't be out of place.
And yeah, I would also argue that this can hold 8 picnic tables,
Yep.
but whether or not we put 8 there
Just put it-
Well,
is,
like just again, she's got like the grill on there, she's got different things like that on there, and maybe that's the other part to it. Maybe that half of it is picnic tables and the other half is
More space is spread.
something.
Well, you need, like you were saying, open just to set up some,
Yeah.
something other than.
circle time for, to open
Yeah.
presents
Well,
or,
we even had, we've recently had a VBS reach out to us looking for, they use the playground, they actually use that space for the VBS thing. So again, just being able to have picnic tables, I don't know how many people have been to that, but, whether they're coloring or doing a craft or something on this side and then they use this over here. So, we've seen people with the need of space, green space, that has done multiple things in here recently.
And I think with if you went with the 20 by 40, like that large, and only did 6 picnic tables and leave the one end open, then somebody could bring card tables and set food at one end,
Correct.
have like your buffet line going through or whatever, and then the picnic tables. I think the 20 by 24 is gonna get kind of lost on that side. I think it's just gonna look like this little.
I think
like-
we all agree that's, well.
Yeah. And I'm not
If
opposed.
on this side, I could see that it would be
It
small.
would
But then
look
you
more
have,
like a
you have
gazebo.
grass or green stuff to play on.
I think that, for me, this is what needs, some of these is what needs to go down in the, if we could
Yeah,
get
the
one,
more
if it wasn't
Yeah.
too wet, if we determined, because that to me looks like it fits right there.
yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. But I want, for today's conversation, just looking at across from the basketball court,
So the website that I found that on, and it was just because they mailed us books, is Americana.com. So they have other structures that are, as you can see, I have price sheets. I have one full price sheet of absolutely everything. If you guys want to just kind of glance at it, I have done the mega Google search for all this different stuff, but a lot of it that you're finding is it costs so much for it to be delivered. So finding somebody local, or finding a company that would be willing to come out and actually give us an estimate on building one and doing all of the entire project would be amazing. At least for comparison purposes. When we're spending this much money, I do believe we should have a couple different quotes for something like this.
Eric, does DAS have any kind of repository of state like in-state companies that,
So you mean like what someone on the state contract list who this?
yeah, I mean, do they have some kind of, approved contract list to help municipalities
Yeah,
out?
I wouldn't be surprised because there's so many, though they're, ODNR amongst others, or any
Yeah.
of their own metro parks, they all buy the stuff, so.
Right.
Yeah, we'll have to do a little research, that's a good point.
So let's, I mean, if does anybody think that larger than 20 by 40 is where we would want to go? I mean, when I was standing out there, it seemed appropriate. You could go bigger, but then you'd lose runaround space for, because there would be, next to the house and before the street, there is
Good space.
space for activities at the size where we had, walked it out, basically. I don't think it needs to be any bigger than that. Because if you leave that green space, that does let you put up a tent if you need to.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Well, and that's, again, you guys may find that one of these other structures, that one just, I don't know why, that one's just, I mean, as you can see, some of the other ones are cheaper too.
I would say with the stick built, the thing to watch, what you would need to watch out for that, because it would be wood and someone would want to just put up trusses, is that you want to stay away from any kind of truss situation where birds could sit and then
Critters.
crap all over you.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah.
I agree.
So where those, like, like this gable roof structure, they're designed out of steel and they're very clean on the
Yeah.
inside, so you have to have a very determined bird to put a nest in there.
So the
Okay.
easy answer is if anybody wants to take a venture at looking at another structure or two that could potentially be a little bit bigger, any kind of design that maybe we want to have a general contractor or something look at, or give us an estimate on, more power to you. And then, but we'll continue to, maybe by, I know we're gonna meet at the pool, but maybe we can send out, again, some additional emails that if we could get this pinpointed down, because like Donna had asked, it would be nice to tell people that this is actually coming in the fall, or this is coming, we've got to be careful because we're planning on, MPCA is planning on having their block party over in that particular area, so we definitely don't want to we either want to be done with the project or
Right.
start it right after them.
Right.
That would be ideal.
And
Because this
yeah,
This is not something that's going to take a long time. I mean, if we could get the product and have it shipped and all of that, I mean, that particular structure is not rocket science to put together, and the concrete would take 3 days, 3 to 5 days.
and yeah, again, my understanding, right, is that we're putting together a proposal for council.
Correct.
And so it would,
It would just go straight to them, and the money's already been appropriated, so honestly, we will be having some discussions about that on Saturday. The money's already been appropriated.
So I mean, if we were to vote on it, my vote would be for a pad to accommodate
Larger.
no larger than 20 by 40, but
Oh, I agree.
looking at something like that.
The pad that I was looking at, just so you guys know, to accommodate a 22 by 40 is what it is. So I was looking at 30 by 50. That is my math in my head, is to having it bigger than the actual structure.
Yeah.
Do I really need 5 foot on each side? Do I need more on each side? That's where I'm at.
I mean, yeah, the people who install the contractor who's going to sell us this structure.
They just drop off the structure.
Right, but I have to imagine that they've got recommendations.
I think we need to start reaching out to people that actually do.
Could you get
work,
me,
and then-
could you get like a name or two of anybody that you could think
Well, I
of?
don't know anybody off the top of my head that does
See if you can ask around.
specifically this.
I have a question for you, Tony. So if we have to use someone from out of state and it's shipping it, like he is a truck driver, could he come pick it up, like?
Well, I know guys like this, you guys like go work.
Yeah, is that, I didn't know if that was common in the logistics industry, but like,
There are some
I would totally ask him.
around you start out to see.
Yeah, because
They're very expensive, right?
that might be another
I mean,
option.
they can reach out, they give us, they make what they run,
You know,
Right.
so getting
so it's not really.
Right. So yeah, I mean, again, I'm not, for this meeting, I'm not concerned with the structure itself. I want to figure out
They decide.
the size of the structure, and then we'll go find
It's
it,
almost all
right?
in the film out.
So, yeah, I mean, unless there are objections, let's move forward on this with trying to,
Pinpoint something down.
yeah, let's try and find, at this point, find a structure, a company who can make them, and best case, someone who will do the whole thing start to finish, but with a sizing guide of around a 20 foot by 40 foot structure.
Done.
Objections? Cool, that will be moving forward. Yeah, Beth, thank you for this, for putting this together and finding some of these options. I think especially we'll come back to this if we decide to
Yeah, that's why
if we decide to do one anywhere else, I would think that,
Yeah, as I got it, I was like, I think this is too small. But I thought, well, we have other modifications.
yeah, and it's, I mean, just having the universe of cost is
Right.
valuable.
To get an idea of that, but, yeah. And then I think too, when we talked to contractors about it, about putting electric out there, I want to get an idea of what.
I think that's just the electric company. They have to put a box in and then,
Yeah, we just give them
Well-
the address and they'll stick a box down for us.
Do you want lights under it? Do you want outlets?
Yeah,
added?
inside the unit itself, yeah, but it won't be hard to get electricity to that location.
And that can be retrofit.
Yeah.
Any further discussion on the shelter? All right, let's move on to the amphitheater. We've kind of backburnered this for a little while, and so just trying to make a couple baby steps of advancement. And Eric, did you have, for the amphitheater?
So I think what we were last at is that we were talking about a few different simple quotes, right? So I think we were just not, if I recall correctly, we were talking about certain square footage. We know there's tree removal, which we know is going to be, a few $1,000s to get the trees cleared, that are in the direct path going right out of where the amphitheater existence was. We know that and I can't recall if it was 800 square feet or 1,000 square feet, but we didn't want to get too big, so we're
Right.
somewhere in that range. And it was composite decking material. And forgive me, I didn't have that right in front of me. And then we had the mason's quote, which dealt with two different things, either a full rotation, he qualified his quote specifically by saying, once I get into it, depending on how things are looking, it may go up because of the condition of the stones, the age, when we get into it, what needs to be done. We won't know until I take it and start working on it, right? But he had basically two different price points. One, leave it in place, fix it, replace, with, more modern material, the weather, make it look a certain way. And so there was a difference of, let me see if I can quote real quick. I think a difference of somewhere between a few $1,000s versus $13,000. I think if there was a full rotation, but I might be off by a little factor there. So let me find something to tell you. So those were the three items we were at: tree clearing, decking material, which wasn't all the end of by any price by any means, and then the actual, I think, the more expensive item dealt primarily with the rebuilding or fixing, tuck pointing, or more extensive rotation and replacement.
Right.
So.
What do you mean by rotation?
Well, we looked at in the field, when you're pointing, the way the amphitheater points now, the conditions around it didn't exist at the time the amphitheater existed, right? i.e. the dam is new, and then of course the riprap, the giant amount of stone, which we can't really alter now, is directly in the path of where people would potentially sit. If you rotate the amphitheater, you rotate the amphitheater's location facing the south.
Pointing in a different
Correct.
direction.
You would avoid that. You would give yourself more space. There's a way to work the site a little differently, to where you have more space and avoid having people to have to get around that rock, right? Which will save us, long term will save us money anyways. If we can avoid that shenanigan, we won't build anything over, we want to deal with it, right?
But then you are sending sound out to more residents.
You are, I think if we examine it with a point to the south, you still have a hillside in front of you, like a significant blockage. You're going to have, and that's made up of mud and dirt, and just like the the primary dam is, okay? And so I think you're still gonna have a lot of absorption. You know, you're not facing concrete, now the direction will reflect backwards. So, you know, and again, when we talk about, and I think what we'll have to do to give some people some comfort on the sound, we'll have to do some testing out there, which we can do. We'll take different things, different sounds, beat on some drums, you know, have some play a little acoustic guitar, you know, speakers. But in all seriousness, you can test that as is. You can test it as is, and you see for yourself from people who stand at different distances and experience it. You can go right to the residents' yards and things like that on the edges and see what you can hear. I don't think rotating it to the south, you know, is going to change.
I mean, it's just gonna point it from one
Hillside to
one
another.
western border.
Correct. Because the house, you know, there is a house back there, but it's behind that, it's behind where the water flows, by that hillside where the path goes up. So it's shielded as well. I don't think you're gonna have much of a difference.
I don't think we're talking about doing really loud stuff.
No.
It's not like we're getting the
No.
Rolling Stones out here.
Exactly, and part of the conversation, I think as we talked about before, just to bring everyone else up to speed, is that council and administration have full policy control of what happens out there, right? If you find that you have a full year of experimentation and you get a lot of complaints because of a particular thing, you don't have to do that thing anymore, right? You know, so.
I have been complained enough this week, that's all I gotta say, don't do that to me.
It won't be for another year or so no worries. We'll try to spread that, we'll try to spread your complaints out. So, but essentially that's where we're at with our discussion, just to bring it full circle. So we do have some price points, you know, and I think at this stage, it's a matter of wrapping up as best we can our application, correct?
Mhm.
And getting it back into the review board. I don't know if there's something else that, you know, you feel we have to do with that.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're just gonna need to, you know, we're going to need to show them that we've spent the money on the project ultimately.
Correct.
And so if we're, you know, if we're looking at doing a $60,000 project, then we're not gonna meet our obligation.
Well, no, but I think it's up to the particular amount. It's not all or nothing, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, right, but we wouldn't wanna,
No.
we wouldn't wanna leave the government our money.
No, and I don't think, whatever we spend, it's a 50%, right? So I
Right.
think it's a reimbursement grant of up to 50% of whatever you spend on the project. But there's a ton of stuff to do down there. I think if you want to get to the 100 grand or whatever the sign is there, it's not gonna be hard to do.
Right.
Right, there's other pathways and stuff we can improve upon in the nearby vicinity. As an example, you know, there's a pavilion that we could add over there too, right? I mean, there's all kinds of nifty things we can do.
Yeah,
down
I
in
can
that
spend
area.
it, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, so we can find a way to, if we only hit 60 grand on the basics, that's wonderful. But we can then start looking at, I think, some additional things. Since, for example, Tony has suggested a way to do the theater type thing for live pictures, you know, whatever. So movies. So equipment goes into that quote, right? What do we need down there? Electric, you know, run stuff like that.
Yeah,
So,
and that's gonna be a couple grand.
Yeah.
right? So-
Well, yeah, that's if that's covered by,
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because that would be nice to at least put in like, maybe.
That's
why I'm
Yeah, I
leaving
think
at
you
this
could straight
point.
face justify that personally.
well, except in some cases, they have to, because it's bonded funds, whatever you
Yeah.
buy has to have a useful life longer than the funds. So running the electric would count, but the equipment likely wouldn't, because you wouldn't expect a projector to last a full 20 years anymore.
Not the LEDs.
Well, that would be an argument you'd have to take up with folks.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say that about LEDs.
Um,
They used to say 10 years. but
We'll make that argument.
No more, no more.
So do we want
They're
to,
obsolescence already.
our next meeting is going to be at the pool.
Correct.
Do we want to do the following meeting
Yes.
at the amphitheater so that we can all walk that and start to,
Yeah.
I mean, if you guys, I
Or-
like not being
I don't know
here
how-
the whole day.
Yeah, or if it's really not that far from the pool to there, don't yell at me, but are we gonna go mostly for like, I mean, I think that's the main topic, I don't know that that'll take more than,
Yeah,
or
the-
am I missing something?
No, yeah, the original thought is, you know, always if anybody has something they want to do or something they want to add,
Right,
please include that. But we wanted to look at pickleball, and then there was talk about whether or not to consider a shelter there
okay.
as well. And so
But it's like
that could be a pretty quick
That's what I'm
conversation.
saying, if we could do like a 30-minute and then, because the amphitheater, we've been there, we've talked, we've done different things, we now have a couple new people,
Yep.
maybe one. But maybe we could split that just so we, because I
Let's
know
do
the
it.
amphitheater, if we wait till August and start talking about it, now we're talking September, you know.
Yep, no, I'm
If
aboard.
we could do, if we could just split it and everybody just be prepared, maybe to walk across there, from
Yeah.
the pool, and we'll just walk across.
Sounds
And
great.
if we don't have time, then we won't, we'll schedule it for the next
From the
one.
pool to the dam, to the.
Are you not walking that far? Do I need to get you
Well,
a,
if it's as hot as it is right now.
I don't disagree with that, and if it's raining, I mean, maybe, like, let's plan on doing that, but if we end up just at the pool, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Tony, you can also drive to the pool and then drive over.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
You're a grown-up, we're not gonna tell you how to get there.
We need to get you a golf cart.
UTV's right here, stop, get the keys, get the UTV, and then you can go.
So the, basically leave it in place, repair it as needed, starts at 6,500 from an estimate. The rebuild, relook is 22,000. So-
Okay, so that still leaves us a whole lot of wiggle room. So, yeah, so we'll need to figure out what we wanna do.
Yeah,
So the total grant was what, 120?
It was 100,000, but it's with a required 50% match from the village. So the village would have to kick in 50,000 so that the entire amount would be
yeah. But I
150,000.
think we have to, it's a reimbursement, we have to pay the 100,000, we gotta have 100,000 allocated, and we spend it, we get reimbursed, if I remember reading that correctly.
I'm
So
not sure.
They will not give us a check ahead of time, I know that much. So yeah, so we just have to appropriate 100, we'll get 50 back. So,
Gotcha.
Okay, anything?
Is that so if you spend,
70 is an example. We get 35 back.
okay, so it's, you could spend up to 100,000
Yes.
and you get the 50% back.
Yes,
Was it 100,000?
it was.
In my mind, I was thinking it was 150, that was just in my mind,
We
sorry.
will double check for sure since it's happened, everyone's fuzzy.
Yeah.
But I think
It
we
was-
asked for more, we didn't get that full amount.
Right, the award is for 100,000
Yeah,
with a 50% match, meaning that if we put in, if the village ponies up a full
That's what it is.
50,000,
You're right,
then we can spend 150,000.
that's it, that's what mine.
Okay, so next meeting will be split between the pool and the amphitheater. Does anyone have anything they'd like to discuss on the amphitheater additionally? And it sounds like, so, you know, Donnie did a great job getting the appropriation in the first place. It sounds like that should cover, I mean, it sounds like this one appropriation should do everything we want
Yep.
for the amphitheater. So if you guys are okay with it, and just because, and Donna, we'll work together, but just because I'm down there with these people anyway, I'll start conversations in the fall about something for the village in the next capital cycle.
Yes.
We'll need to figure out what we want that to be.
okay.
So,
You and I can talk a little bit, so I think there's some ideas.
when I talked with Lightbody, one of the things that I showed her was the original, like the drawing, which had a stone like wall in the back, and it was 2 years ago, but I did some pricing, and it was probably gonna be like 60 grand minimum for just, you know, a nice backdrop. And, you know, so that might be,
Sure.
and that might address the sound issues if it turns out to be a problem. And also, it's something that would make it, like, it would be good for arts in the park and, you know,
Mhm.
plays and whatnot, that just maybe a blank stage might not do, I don't know. So there's always things that you can, I guess, improve upon.
Yeah.
I did find your email originally, is it 100 grand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you know, there is another there will be another capital funding cycle that they will start discussing this winter to pass in a year from last week. So we need to make sure that we've got something in mind as we get into probably the beginning of October. We need to have, you know, something formed in mind that we would like to try and get funding for. I think the price point there is, you know, again, ask for 200,000 in the hopes that you get 100,000.
Okay.
Right, and that's gonna be huge right now, and I'm not getting into a council discussion, but funding, if we spend the majority of the parkland fund on
Shelter.
the shelter and, you know, our contribution, because that's about as much as we would have, then we have to make sure that we have council's blessing for additional funding, because we already know getting the next step to the new building, we're already cringing, and that's without doing the links.
Right, and there are ways that,
The in-kind and all that kind of stuff as
right,
well.
and also, you know, if we partnered with an institution of higher education,
Yes.
there's no match required, but there are a completely separate set of hoops that have to be
Okay.
have to be
Because I
gone
think we're
through.
about 3 years out before Kim really, 3 or 4 years out before Kim, once we start getting some of this other stuff done. So I'm just gonna tell you the next 2 years is not gonna be,
It's gonna be a little light.
Not a
Yes.
lot of discretionary spending.
right. So knowing that we would have to match X amount of funds, just keep that in mind, making sure that we have the, like you're alluding to. I mean,
Right.
we just wanna make sure that we don't miss out on getting one of these projects done because we didn't think far enough ahead, because I would like to see, I am one person, I would love to see the Parkland Fund go for 2 major projects.
Right.
Like, you know, again, whether it's the amphitheater and the structure or something like that versus nickel and diving it to death, which is what we've done with just picnic tables and stuff, but like you guys know, there hasn't even been $5,000 spent. So,
But if, you know, if we can, as some example, if we could find a way to stock all of the ponds with some kind of ecosystem, and then involve OSU's, urban planning, environmental planning, biology courses, and tell them that these are now mobile classrooms, that you are allowed to bring classes to our
Right.
ponds and climb in them and pull stuff out, then we have a 20-year agreement where we would get those funds and there's no match.
And we could put a gazebo on the lake like there used to be, you know, something like
Well,
that.
yeah, I mean, yeah, possibly, if we could figure out how to call that with a straight face, call that classroom space.
it would have a
then,
electricity, we just need to make sure.
The other thing, yes,
Lights, I
I
don't
think
know.
we should look at getting funding for is the bike path to
Yeah.
connect us to Elm Creek.
And that'll be
Yeah.
local grants, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, whatever we do though, it's gonna, how are you gonna get past Westerville Road?
Right.
Did I send you the information that Senator,
I don't remember it if you did.
yeah, they looked up a bunch of like federal grants.
Yeah.
That would work for the bike paths and stuff. And I was surprised that was quite a bit.
Okay,
Good times.
additional thoughts on amphitheater, moving on. Ready, Tony? Let's talk signage. So Eric sent out a highlighted section. I want to start by going, if you don't mind, to the beginning of this chapter, which is not in what was printed out, but the top of this chapter, chapter 1280, is signs. It states under purpose and intent, it says specifically, it is the intent of this chapter to provide businesses in the village with equitable sign standards in accordance with fair competition, blah, blah, blah. This section of code, correct me if I'm wrong, only pertains to businesses.
Well, I'm so glad you're starting there, because that's what we've debated. I wouldn't say there's been much debate.
I don't think there's any debate at all. Under purpose and intent of this section, it pertains specifically, it is the intent of this chapter to provide businesses.
But what I'm getting at is I've been struggling for years to get the village to understand, you can't apply this to the residential area.
It doesn't.
No, I don't think it, yeah.
And so for the purpose of tonight's discussion.
That's why I brought up this conversation, is because we don't have a code that applies to residents.
No,
So that's a whole nother topic.
Yes, it is another topic. It's different. There is code in there that talks about, political signs or signs that you throw into residential neighborhoods. But if you don't have signage requirements, you don't typically allow signs by default, right? So it's a whole different ballgame from discussion with what's in the within the residential district versus what's not. So we can get to that at a different day.
Well, and I think it's important to establish that point, because because if you're gonna use this for both, then,
Well, it doesn't say that, I wouldn't,
well, right.
I wouldn't apply this to both.
But we haven't, that's what I'm trying to say, is that we haven't applying this code to residential.
You'll have to show me where exactly you think it's being applied, 'cause I certainly haven't applied this
Because
code.
this is, I mean, I can tell you for years, someone put up a temporary sign, you know, for an auction, and it was a big sign, you know, and this was a sign that we used to say, you can't do that.
Well, then it was cited incorrectly.
Well,
Okay,
there,
Yeah.
all
I know what
I
you're
will,
saying, but it's not right.
but I will also let you know that there was, different administration
wow.
that did not, that took it, that was able to, whatever. Because it was a conversation that I had with our code enforcement officer about, people that have windows put in, and you put a window sign in your front yard, and you get 10% off if you do it for a week or 2 weeks, and I think Eric and I talked about this too, but I talked to Jason quite a bit about it. And that was strictly a no with the last administration. No. If you can get 10% off by putting a sign in your front yard, have at it. I
Well,
mean,
and that's gonna be the next conversation will be the residential side.
Right. So, yeah, so,
But right now today, we're worrying about business.
yes, and because this section, because 1280, the entire chapter deals solely with signage for businesses, none of what we're going to read in here applies to residential. And at this point, there is nothing that applies to residential. So for tonight, we don't need to say the word residential anymore.
Well, yeah, because it makes it really confusing to try to use.
Absolutely. And so it's, and I would agree with Eric that if somebody was doing it previously, I believe that happened, but I believe that it shouldn't have. So,
Unfortunately, part of the issue is that our other districts refer back to 1282 and 1280, and so they all refer back, and so we'll have to make some,
Yeah.
Right.
make some adjustments. in the
yeah, I mean,
code.
every section refers to, except for the exceptions
The
in.
intent was must have been to add something here specifically for this area, but I don't think it ever got handled properly, from what I can tell. So, all right, signs are always complicated and fun. So,
So that's why we're doing it.
yes.
So the section specifically that we're looking at is exempted signs. Outside of exempted signs, I don't think there's if it's not an exempted sign, it's a wall sign or a temporary sign.
Well, I think what you're getting at, this is where the issues are at.
Yes.
It's in this part of the code.
Yeah, because
Most all the other stuff, I'm not.
right, and so, just so everybody, a wall sign, we're talking about, your letters
Permanent
backlit
sign.
permanently on the wall above your business. Those have their own set of rules on how they're lit and how big they are and how high they are and whatnot, and that's all in code. But again,
That's the part that we've recently tightened up too.
right, and they're inspected every other year, and I don't think we have an issue with those. What we have an issue with, by and large, is apparently,
It's really the appearance of the strip malls.
Yeah.
You know, the-
and right now, there's 2 or 3 places that have signs, 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, 1 year. It's the one right that I have to pass every freaking day, and I just want to go rip them all down myself. Because the rest of the strip mall looks great. But if you go further down in some of these other ones, it's like that. But I have to pass one that there's like 7 different poster signs.
what all is Minerva Park?
That's what I was just going
Okay, I won't get this completely right, but Jordan Road, so ours is that strip mall, Yasmin Market is ours. If you go right here to Woodley, and all those strip malls all the way down.
Yasmin Market, but
Yes.
not to Steak and
It
Shake.
goes from the middle.
Steak
Not Steak and Shake.
Not
Right,
Steak and Shake,
okay.
but GFS,
Right.
Yasmin Market,
2 others down to,
and then the ones coming this way towards
Right.
Minerva Lake Road.
the last piece of commercial on Cleveland is Enocam Motors, and that
Yes.
small office right south of it.
Well,
And that's
I think
the
on the other
further.
side of
Yeah, I think that one office
There's
building is, I think you're.
Oh,
There
okay.
is a real,
The
it's
little
like
one.
a
Yeah.
house.
I think, yeah,
office.
And there's a plumber, and I think that one.
That one's
That's
Miller
the other
Rainey.
corner.
That's the other corner.
Yeah. And then
Goes
on
from Miller
yeah.
Rainey down to like, there's 2 house businesses just
Yeah,
south
just south
of Maple.
They don't have any signs that I'm aware of.
So that's, I mean, aside from little houses, we're talking about 3 strip malls, right?
Yeah, 3 strip
The
malls,
three strip malls.
bunch of minor office buildings. Then on 161, it juts in and out, but after the Korean church, then it's everything between
Yeah.
the 299, the office building, down to where the massage
Wendy's
parlor is. So it's that group
Okay.
of structures there.
Around the center.
And there's also the one on what is it,
And massage.
the old Dublin Granville Road across 161. It used to be a car lot.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah, along 23, there's, yeah.
Right at the corner of Westerville Road and Old.
And then we
Yeah.
also have the,
It's mostly structure.
Well, the storage place, if you're
Storage
gonna go
place.
wrap around, then
Yeah.
there's a storage.
You got a couple
place there,
of
Westerville
That's,
Road.
Yeah.
that's.
Okay, so
yeah.
more than I thought.
so, but the topic of discussion, in my opinion, for this particular, like, the signs for the window display that's highlighted is, in my opinion, where I see the issue is the main ones right there. And the problem that you have is, you have some people that have been told numerous times that they're not allowed to have signs, and they've removed all of theirs, and they're getting antsy because the other places aren't getting in trouble.
Right.
And again, that was pre-me.
Well, and I think the problem too has been that it's so, I mean, the way the code reads, you're not allowed to have very many signs at all.
No,
Less than
no,
10%.
it's a bit of a painful code.
Yeah, and so
It's not friendly.
it sounds like we have two issues to deal with. And well, there are two issues. We have one to deal with. One issue is with enforcement, right? And that's not us. We have a code enforcement officer now who can go out there and enforce the code, which leads to
What do we want them to enforce?
we need to find out if this is doing what we want it to do, right? And so, you know, flags and pendants and things like that, everybody has to have their address posted clearly. Everybody's allowed to post their hours of operation. Everybody's allowed to have the post on what credit cards they take. And then you get to these additional exceptions.
What does City of Columbus have?
Well, it's all different. I'd rather not use Columbus. It's a bit of because it's such a huge jurisdiction, I'd rather use other good examples of smaller jurisdictions, since I've worked in several of those as well. I'm more familiar with their code, but it's more applicable because they're also residential or veteran communities, right, in many cases. And so the view shed is similar to ours, right, as far as what they would tolerate and what they want to see and how it affects the viewscape. And they range a bit, right? So I would say 10%, let's just talk window signs since we're on that topic, right? So 10% of your, if you look at one of these window panels behind you, 10% is a very small area and really is not appropriate. And I would say there's two parts of this. Really, the way the code should be written is that it should be your aggregate window area. You should consider it one section, and then stores can make a determination about how they want to utilize that space in front of them, right? And for certain business types, it's more important than others. For example, your Giant Eagle or Kroger's with their front windows utilize a great deal of that. When you drive by, look at your store next time. They use probably 80% of the certain panels, right? Now they may leave certain panels open, and that's probably because of local codes, where again it's written in an aggregate area standpoint. 10% of any particular window is worthless. It's not going to help the business. It looks stupid if they put something up there. I think it works against everybody. Some places are given 20%. I would say, if you want to be reasonable, first it comes down to what does everyone feel, does anyone have a burning burr in their saddle when it comes to a window sign, first of all, short of anything that's offensive? Do you have problems with your grocery stores or any, because Yasmin is essentially a big international grocery store now. Do you have any problem with them using window panels? Because they've got a lot on the front there. So, I would think about it, your example, would that change the aesthetics so drastically if you went from 40 to 50 to 60, would it matter? So kind of look at it from that, from your view as residents. I think it's what it comes down to. Businesses will take advantage of whatever you give them, and then a little bit more if they need to. When you really see them pushing the boundaries, probably because you don't have appropriate code, right? And there's different ways of looking at that, but I think you need to give them a bit more. I think your range should definitely be 40 to 60, and I would say if you want to be business friendly, I would go up to 60. You'll find out not all businesses will utilize it, right? But many of them will, especially in the retail sector. Those windows are important and those signs are important.
And yeah, I mean, I can understand that you don't want a shady business to paper over all their windows and nobody can see what's going on inside. Also understand that a retail business probably wants to have at least a little bit of natural light come in.
Yep.
So I would, I'm not sure why this needs to be here at all.
Fair statement. Yeah.
And going through every single number, they all make perfect sense, except, well, H to me, but, and I. And so it looks like I is the only one that we're talking about. So the only thing in this code that we're not, that might not be wise is this 10%. And does anybody think that, does anyone have an argument why people should not be able to put stuff up in their windows?
I
I
also.
don't like it, I think it looks like trash. Like, when I drive through a strip mall, I do not want to see, in my neighborhood, like, all I think of, and maybe that was not the nicest thing to say on a recording. I just think 30 different posters that's like $8.99 for beer. I just think it looks like a total carry out. Like there's two places that I don't love. I'm sorry, I don't.
All right.
In a hair salon, if they had one normal size, sale, whatever, I wouldn't have an issue with that. But I don't like driving down Morse Road and seeing the places like the carry out type places, which we currently don't have a lot of that right now, but there's no rules and restrictions that we couldn't have 3 of those and all of their windows are just filled with $8.99 beer signs. I'm sorry, I think it looks like, I don't love that.
So, and I'm just trying to wrap my brain around things. If you had a carryout that had one entire panel was their menu,
Right.
but it was, a white background with everything printed up on lines versus one panel of 8.5 by 11, all different colored with things. Does it matter what you're looking at or the amount of space you're looking at?
If I could go hang them up myself and they were pretty and they were all of the above, I would be okay with it. But that's not the way that it works.
Okay, so it's not about how much of the space is being taken up. It's the aesthetic of the amount of space that's being taken up.
I
Okay.
think that's part of I think it's just, I envision some of these places that it just doesn't, it invites I don't know.
Yeah, no, you have a valid argument. I just want to make sure I understand.
Yeah, no, it's not, if it were like
Like a handwritten sign.
This is done in a more
$8.99.
aesthetic manner. What
Yeah.
she's talking about is the extreme one.
Right, and yeah,
right
we're,
now, I don't even know what it is because it continually changes. So if you go down Jordan Road, it's the very first one. And it is new, every single
the
time there's a new
furniture's-
person. But again, I don't think it's about, it just depends on what it is, I think.
yeah. So it's not.
That's a word, those to me are fine. And even that, I don't have an issue with that. It's when they put these random stupid little poster things everywhere.
So we have to figure out how we can
And that's just-
legislate aesthetics.
There's a way you can do that.
And I'm one person, so you guys can just be like, you're an idiot, so.
No, I don't disagree with you at all. I think that we agree that we don't care how much of the window is taken up.
No, because those I would be perfectly, anybody that did any one of those, I would be totally fine with, even the one that is that long one,
Yep.
that just looks nice.
Yeah. So
Look at that code, there's one inch
Yes.
that's just going up.
There's a way to do it.
Good, but versus.
Without
I know what you're
infringing.
saying.
Right. So, first, you have to stipulate that it has to be done in a professional manner. So they can't take a piece of cardboard and throw it in the window. That's a no, right? So they can't print out an 8 by 11, or write something, on a paper and a highlighter and put it in the window. Or they can't cut out pieces of the newspaper and put it in the window.
Right.
Right? And that's what we're talking about here,
Yes.
essentially. These are professionally done, and when they're professionally done, you start there by saying, has to be done by a professional or professional sign company. You can legislate that stuff. So we can add some language that deals with that. So that eliminates the shenanigan, because we can easily identify, dude, you cut that out of the newspaper. That can
Right.
not,
Just by the-
show me your sign.
Yeah, by the same token, we need to leave something so that if someone is, has no ice or their credit card machine is down, that they can
Oh, yeah.
slap an 8.5 by 11 up in the window and not get dinged for
Yes,
it.
you can, in fact, your code's got stuff, just like many other puzzles, where you can handle, here it's called directional, but it's the same type of idea.
Right.
Informational, we can call it an informational, that's 8.5 by 11 that you've got to put up for an emergency, you know?
Yeah, so, yeah, I mean, that's
We
the,
can talk
part,
about
part K would likely cover that.
Yeah, so
Okay.
you can do that, and trust me, business owners are gonna throw that up whether you have a legislator. or
Well,
not.
right, and-
And it's gonna be reasonable, it's not gonna be, because what we're talking about here are these semi-permanent things they're putting on the window for longer periods of time, you know, what we call them window decals, window signs, but they're there for months and months potentially, right? Sometimes they leave them for 30 days, sometimes they're there for 6 months, right? So, but you wanna give them some creative flexibility, but make sure it's a professional aesthetic.
Right,
you know,
and so if we, you know, looking directly at I, right, I4 says that they can't be that they are erected for a period not to exceed 30 days each. I would think we need to get rid of that. If I'm gonna spend $600 on really nice signage, I'm not gonna wanna do it every month.
Correct.
Yep, I agree.
So,
And that's actually what we're trying to do. We're trying to get them to do something
Exactly.
for long-term that looks nice.
right, and so as a business owner, why would I spend all that money right now on something
Oh, absolutely.
that you're gonna yell at me for leaving up for? So in my opinion, that would need to go right off the bat, yeah?
I look at this, right, for this, you know, this has Sharon Bierman's signature all over it.
Yes.
This is the whole thing about, it's like, why did they put this in there? at the
Well,
time?
it was back in '89, so she was on council at that
So
time.
I'm saying, I think,
A lot of the code that was adopted around '89, and when they were trying, I believe when they were trying to put something on the books, right? So
yeah, they did
probably-
a lot of changing in '89.
Yeah, I see that.
So looking at number 3, illuminate only from a concealed source, that makes sense, right?
I think so.
You don't throw a big external spotlight on your,
Right.
you know, on anything. So we could leave 3. Placed only in ground level windows, I think that makes sense too, as an overall aesthetic.
Not too many.
We don't have
two-story
too many-
I can't think of any, but some of the houses, right, that would be putting
Yeah,
then,
there is.
you know,
That would, yeah.
something in a 2nd-story window.
But again, you're talking about the ones along the retail corridor.
Yeah, there's
that have
a-
a retail zoning, so.
Be the
Yeah, I mean,
big
I
two
can
night
believe
with
that too, those windows are small too, I just don't, I see this as more for I'm looking at this more from a strip center management standpoint, right?
I would agree.
Right, and none of them have 2 stories, right? So somebody put that in there for a reason, and so I'm trying to imagine what
There's
that,
2 houses over there.
Well, I
well,
think
and so that's what I'm, you know,
they copied this from somebody else, that's where it came from originally, they didn't write this themselves, so they made adjustments to it. Kind of like what we're doing.
so do you want to leave the ground level windows?
Yeah.
Or, you know, because it doesn't seem to be a problem right now,
Yeah,
or pull it because it doesn't seem to be
I
a
don't see
problem?
a need for it.
Yeah, the shorter, the sweeter
Less
that
is
it
more,
is.
all right, so if we get rid of that,
It is.
Because that's a problem, the sign code can become extraordinarily complex sometimes, it's just.
So I think we're now down to the big one. How
so
many-
yeah, signs incorporated into a window display of a business, provided that such window display signs are, and this is it, yeah, limited to 10% of the total first floor window area up to a maximum of 4 square feet. Can we steal language from, I mean, New Albany would probably be great for that, right? Take New Albany and then eliminate half of it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying. Let's let me get some example language clauses that'll be useful here. You know, I've written some over time in different entities as well. We would say aggregate, we would change the percentage to what you would want, right? And I would definitively eliminate the maximum,
Yeah.
you know, in that case too. So.
Yeah, you don't want me to write it because it would just say it needs to look pretty.
and we
Do-
would
I
add-
mean,
we would add professional
Do we even need
design.
this? I mean, didn't we just kind of say that as long as the sign is professional? do we
Right, and that's
care?
my question, if Yasmin wanted to cover all the window
We just
with,
say Yasmin Market.
with one huge professional decal, I wouldn't
Yeah.
care about the percentage. If they wanted to eliminate the natural light, then they could eliminate the natural light, it's their business.
Yeah.
Do we want to have a percentage at all, or just say
No, but I'm
that?
wondering, like he's saying, I'm wondering if like Westerville, New Albany, somebody has
They do.
something that doesn't, that basically says what we wanted, similar, because.
They will have something, we will pull clauses, all except the percentages, which will vary between
Right.
municipalities.
Right.
They all seem to like that.
But I agree with the percentage, I don't think there is, you know, I mean, if it looks good, I don't care if it's 100%.
But
And if it looks
If
ugly, I don't want it to be more than
If you
5.
ever see the strip mall people, I mean, that's the thing.
There's 2 places in the strip malls, and I could not name which one it is, and it's just the, like I said, it's the little signs that just need, or like little posters or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just one of the, it just,
I mean, I gotta disagree with getting rid of percentages, even if they are completely professionally done. My opinion, what we need to do is like percentages, because I don't think there's many people on there that are gonna get professionally made posters.
Well,
They're gonna get hammered.
Yeah, if it's not professionally made, you don't get to have it at all.
They're gonna get, yeah, that's
Well,
where the
when I say
enforcement comes in.
professionally made, you can get I think the if you look at the posters and
Yeah.
things that are up in the windows now.
Yes.
You know, I don't have a problem with those, but I have a problem with a bunch, completely
So-
filling their,
so what we could-
filling their windows.
Right.
No, understood. So what we could say is if,
My thing is that with the, like, if you have them marking them, and they may want to put them, I hate to say it, maybe they gotta get a variance.
possible, you could leave that open for some approval process. This,
Or do
so
some type
so
of-
now you see how quickly it can become a complex issue with signage. It just happens naturally because it's difficult to do a simplified version, it's difficult to do a catch-all. Because the simplified worries about loopholes. And of course, when you start getting into closing loopholes, you get into complexities, right? And it's just, it becomes, signage is not an easy thing to deal with. So let's start as simple as we can.
I mean,
Yeah.
the thing, but I've heard a lot of, and that's why I brought it up, I've had a lot of people come to me and say, what are you gonna do, when are you gonna start doing something about the strip mall, they look like hell.
Let's-
And that's why I.
Wish we would've gone and taken a
I
couple
think those
pictures.
people that bring
I have a
up, it's
suggestion.
just there's just too many signs in there, Mom.
Let's do a little collage for, the next time we go to talk about this. And we're gonna be on a couple sites next time, so it won't necessarily be approached. But for our next beginning of the monthly meeting, let's prepare a couple nice collages of the street view as it currently exists, so that it can focus on our retail centers. And you can so everyone can kind of
Well, now
equally
they
see.
take a look and
how
see
it
what we're
looks.
talking about.
Yes,
So-
so we can all talk about it, and then I think it'll bring things into clearer focus, and then I'll have some suggestions on some of this other language and stuff like that, and I think we can do that.
well, and we, just so you know, code enforcement has a folder, that actually, and we really probably should update it, but it's pretty up to date. I would say it was probably done within the last year and a half. I think Jason might have done some of it, is actually every single commercial property we have a picture of.
That's good.
So maybe what we'll do is see if we can, like you said, we'll go get a couple like long ones and then bring that book out, see which ones potentially need updated because I'll have time to do it. And I can have John look into that over the next couple days. That way we can kind of flip through it and say, okay, this is what we don't like. How would this code affect this?
So-
And maybe pick like 4 or 5 of them and see.
Okay.
Well,
Can we-
yeah, one other thing that that we may need to talk about is the permitting process for putting up signs. I don't think we ever do that.
No.
And I'm talking about the
You're
box.
talking about the boxes.
I'm talking about the
So
big-
they're supposed to, when they do a phase change, it's in the skip, they're supposed to come in and file a permit. Now, most professional sign companies know better. Like, they know, to come in and they do it because it's on their list, right? They deal with a ton of different municipalities, Sinorama as an example, right? They'll go around and they'll call us. I mean, I've dealt with calls, and I know our code enforcement have too, where they're asking questions about, hey, can you guys help us update our sign requirements? And then we'll, because they know where they've got to file permits and not.
Well, what I did, and that's a part of, I probably should have looked at a little bit closer, is, the way the code reads right now is if you're gonna put a sign up, you need to get a permit. The way, and it doesn't differentiate between a window sign
Well,
or a.
it does. So if you look under 1280.03 existing signs, the following signs are exempt from the provisions of the chapter and are not subject to permit requirements. It spells it out at the beginning. So all of these are considered exempted signs, so don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, and then there is a schedule for permit fees for different types of signs.
Which council overrode with its schedule, the overall schedule, so.
Well,
But I guess
Something we can eliminate when we go
through.
through.
Right.
Or, changing the code issue is that I don't know that we've ever gone, had someone come in and they get a sign.
They have. They've come and get face change, because we added face change to our schedule, and people do that, where they change the face. Because these are built, right, people aren't coming in to put in new, that construction box is electrical and involves building code review and stuff like that. The face change definitively does require a permit, and people.
We have had people.
We have had examples of that happening over the years. I mean, I can recall reviewing some of them, so it does happen.
and then we're supposed to review them every other year, right?
We're supposed to, well, they're supposed to, anytime, and usually we can tell if a sign, because something's usually blank for a while.
There's
And so new
some
business comes in, you
language
can
about
usually tell that, and we'll go after them if somebody did not file their permit properly. I mean, we can see it. A lot of these guys haven't changed over. I mean, it might be one or two.
Yeah.
I know that they wanted to put a restaurant in that one corner of the strip center, but that
Yeah.
never came to fruition.
I know.
So,
They worked on it, and
yeah,
then.
and that was a newer construction and never got, COVID happened and then.
Yeah, the village engineer or his or her designee shall re-inspect each sign once every 24 months.
Yeah, we don't do, so that's the old building.
We just don't do that.
That's in the
Right.
building.
Well,
phase. Yeah, that's.
So again, I
that's
mean,
not- that
if,
doesn't
if
happen.
we're gonna
Right,
get in
right,
here,
right.
then fix things.
Yeah, that's not normal. That's again an old 89 code in which each wherever they took this from, that municipality had, maybe who knows, maybe it was out in a different county, and that they pulled it and their engineer or building official was the one that did the checks,
Right, so yeah, I mean, if we're gonna open up this section of code to suggest changes, then let's
There you go.
clean it.
I don't disagree with you. One thing I will point out, since we were touching on residential, there is a number of things that do touch on this on some residential, which we'll need to clean up too. First and foremost, it clearly states that there shall be no signs, with the exception of the exempted stuff, in the residential district, right? So some of the exempted stuff is political signs, as an example, that, we can't, you actually can tell people nobody can, it's kind of interesting. You have to be completely even on how you handle political signs,
Where's
right?
that at?
Is there,
Yeah, what section is that?
1 second, I come across while I was skimming.
E.
But political signs, something, so our code also is an unenforceable political sign code, right? We'll just, while we're in there and if we're talking about it, we have to remove the 30-day. The only thing you can enforce upon them is if they become tattered or destroyed in some form. They're basically faded, they're not kept in good condition, essentially. So we'll need to add some language for that. People can leave out their Trump or Biden sign that are 5 years all year long, as long as it stays in good condition. The other thing you can regulate on sign, you have to do it evenly for the village. You'll see in some cases where people put up these giant 3x5 or
Right.
3x8 signs. You can keep them to, this is what I would recommend, because we've written the code for other municipalities. You will keep them to, so you don't have 20 of the same sign in the yard, which is also annoying, and just all how the community feels about it. But basically, you can restrict it to one sign, a standard size, per message, per parcel, right? Now, if they got 2 parcels, they can throw up 2 signs, that's fine. But that's the way to essentially, and per frontage, the other, some of them are on corners, and people have the right to put them on each side of the street. But that's it, and you can keep it, that suggested language keeps you from having, again, multiple repetition of the same sign. Now, if someone puts, is cute and says, Obama sucks it, or something like that, they're perfectly fine. They can do that. So, that's
Where, Eric, what section are you reading that talks about?
If you go under exempted sections of 1280.03 and then you skip down to E, it talks about your political signs.
Right, where
And then if you go under.
does it say that it's for residential?
If you go 1280.04 general requirements under A and you go to the bottom there, it said no sign shall be located in any district zone, R1, R2, R3, R4. You have to specify it in, and it goes into, there's a couple, perhaps some of the exemptions, but when I look down here, it's more size and stuff like that. So anyway, that's where primarily none of these type of signs can exist in the residential, so it outlaws them, completely.
Well,
Okay.
and this came up, not that we need to do this or not, but you get the signs, that say, my wildcat lives here.
And I see that as a form of messaging. Now it's interesting because it's not political messaging, but it's personal or
They stay up for 4 years at my house.
yeah,
each.
they're personal or seasonal, right? So just like I can put out I love Santa, right? And it's a sign, and it can be lit. So there have been plenty of cases, where that's a freedom of expression, and as long as it's, not advertising in commercial language, you gotta let them do stuff like that, so.
Well, that falls under an exempted.
Well, it does or doesn't, we can make sure it does.
Well, so,
The holidays are themselves aren't exempted, it's the language when we talk about seasonal personal messages, right?
even for business, here, Part D of exempted signs is clearly in the nature of decorations customarily associated with any national, state, local, or religious holiday.
Yeah,
So can I just real quick
Yeah.
jump to H
yeah,
on this? Signs for the promotion, so we're talking about businesses again, right? Signs for the promotion of school, community service, or church activities for a maximum period of 15 days per activity, no one sponsor shall display a promotional sign for more than 30 days in any 1 year. Folks should be able to, and I don't know if this is caught up, but
Change it in days, the amount of time.
you should be able to put up the Westerville lacrosse schedule
And just hang it in there. if
and,
you want.
and
Yeah.
hang it on, like,
Yeah, I don't disagree with you.
and so my read of this is that is that you can't do that for more than 15 days and for not per activity and no more than 30 days in 1 year. And a season is longer than each of those. So while I'm with you that I don't think we should have 5,000 pieces of paper, if I walk into a business and they are sponsoring the Little League team and have the Little League schedule up there with a
But again,
picture,
that looks professional. Like, that's a nice little sign that has, it's typically not like a handwritten, like,
right, and then we're going to get into what we're talking about where, so now I can cover my entire
So we'll have to-
window
we'll
with
have to
individual
go.
little professional signs from every, and now it looks tacky again.
But again, does that, so I just want to say, I want to be cautious on going to the extremes on any of these examples for the community. And I will simply say, it's something people want to cover the loopholes, but by doing so, you get into complex code. I also find from experience that most businesses, to their detriment, if they did that, it misaffects them in some way, right? We just don't see those extreme examples. Yes, they could, but do they? And I'm hard pressed to find real world examples
Right,
of that happening.
I just want to make sure that H is not going to keep someone from, and again, I
No,
would,
I agree with you.
I would like to think that our code enforcement officer is not going to come ding people, but if it's in the code that they should be dinged, and the code enforcement should not be dinging them, it shouldn't be in the code.
I guess with H,
So that, I mean, we don't need to go through it all and figure it out now,
I
but
agree.
that's one potential read that I get from it.
because one of the issues here is that this code is dated, okay, at some point. So I want to keep that in mind too. So some of this stuff, and we'll bring, sign code is very special in the sense that a lot of case laws happened since '89. And when I say that, it goes back to the political sign, failed at the language that all municipalities used to use for 30 days before and after election, that got knocked down, right, at the higher levels. So many things have changed since this time period. We'll actually have our law director involved. Sorry, go ahead.
Can we at least have something in our sign code that says political signs cannot be threatening? Because I have to walk by a Nazi eagle every fucking day when I walk my dog.
I understand.
And that
So
really bothers me.
let me jump on this. I get this for a second. So
It's
here's
terrible.
the problem. Here's the problem, is that this country's experience, unlike Germany's, who had to live through the Nazis directly, right? So the Nazi party is outlawed in Germany, and there's no free speech for the Nazi party at all in Germany, right? And there's a good reason for that, right? Now, here in the United States, whether we like it or not, if some knucklehead wants to put up unfortunately a swastika, he can't, right? It's
But
just
that
totally-
advocates for my
but,
death,
but,
and I don't like
I
that.
understand what you're saying, but it has been, it's not something we're gonna be able to hold up.
I know, but it's
And I'm
just,
telling you
like,
that-
it's not just offensive,
I understand what you're
like,
saying.
it's a threat.
I understand, and
legitimate
I'm not in
threat.
disagreement with you. I see a lot of stupidity out there with Confederate flags, and I see, people
Yeah,
don't fully
that's
realize what those
horrible.
symbolize. And I understand, and I'm in agreement with you, but that stuff is all protected free speech under the US Constitution, has been upheld time and time again. It is not something that we are gonna be able to legislate here at the Minerva Park Hall. So I'm sorry, it's one of those things, we're not gonna be able to put it in our code to say, you can't have a Nazi symbol. That's going to get us front and center on CNN, and that's going to be front and center for court case, and then we're going to be lose that battle. I'm just going to tell you straight up. So, yes, people will agree with you. I agree with you, but it is not an outlaw thing in this country. I know it sucks. This is what it is. Someone can put up a sign.
How does a swastika become political? I mean, I don't.
Well, if I may, so swastika is political speech. You're abdicating for the Nazi regime. Right, and that was a political party, as you know, who killed many people and started World War II and all that good stuff, right? But it's still political speech. So it's protected free speech. Even if it wasn't political in nature, it's still a form of free speech. If I put up a Nazi symbol,
But it's not, I don't buy.
Yeah, like-
that is.
I'm not get into this.
No, I'm just telling you,
It's just-
all of these
I mean,
symbols.
I think of a political sign that says vote for so-and-so.
Yes.
Right, but so even if you say it's not political, it's still free
It's
speech.
still free speech.
You
I
have the ability to say whatever you
Yeah.
want, regardless of how stupid it is.
So free speech by the individual in this country is a very
Well,
sacred,
then how do you
protected
put up
right.
any, well, how do you have any, okay, so I can, how can you prevent someone putting up a sign for Able Roof?
Because that's commercial speech, and it's also, from a history standpoint, we can, in court cases, we can regulate commercial speech at a much stricter amount than we can
Freedom of speech.
individual speech. Now, I believe you can't make direct threatening comments. There is a line that is drawn, and again, we don't see.
Like, I'm gonna kill.
I'm gonna kill Donna. Donna, I'm gonna kill Donna tonight, right? That's gonna be a police visit, okay?
Yeah.
Right, so you can't do that, but certain symbols are protected when I put them out as a messaging.
It is a touchy subject.
It is a touchy subject, but there's a reason for that, okay? Because people have been persecuted for right and wrong, right? And so anyways, a lot of drama on that part of the discussion, but when since we're focusing more on the commercial speech, much more history on regulation in that regard, okay? And so a lot of court cases, we have a great amount of ability to regulate that type of speech. So that's what we'll focus on here.
When we get into the residential.
Yes, we can talk about the sign regulations, and there are things you can do even with messaging signs, but it's much more limited.
All right, so in between this and the next meeting, can we email out our picture collage and some sample language that would,
And you mean by next month's meeting, not by the meeting in 2 weeks?
I do mean by the meeting in 2 weeks,
Okay.
so that we can,
I'll see if I can get John, again, I know most of the pictures, like, I can go get the book right now.
Because we're going to be in the field for both of those discussions out
Right.
there. So that's why I want to be clear about, handouts and things like that.
right, no, I want to email out to the group knowing that because it's emailed out, it will become a public record, and therefore any response that you send likely would be as well, but I want everybody to be able to have time to look at things
All right,
in
So-
between.
all right. We'll make it happen.
Okay.
Very good.
Tony, we're making progress?
Unbelievable progress. I think just, determining that this sign code only covers businesses is a major victory.
Well, I mean, it's written pretty plainly.
I know, that's what I've been arguing for I don't know how many years. It's pretty plain, it's English. I've only got high school education here, come on.
Okay, and Mayor, we're looking to address your concerns.
What's it's going to get, we'll get the weeds on that.
Tacky signs.
Oh, the tacky signs?
I mean, as far as, yeah, folks are going to have window signage, it should be
Pretty.
put together.
Aesthetically pleasing.
There you go, we'll use her words.
Aesthetically
Not mine.
pleasing, there you go.
That's all subjective though.
Yeah,
It is.
that's
Right.
Okay,
It's
maybe
difficult.
just for the next 2.5 years, it must pass Tiffany's, approval.
Yeah, that's,
Bring in all posters first. I'm just kidding, I am,
You can do that if you want.
no, I don't.
You
I
could.
don't have time for that.
If you want to guarantee yourself one term, then you can definitely do that.
No, I'm not. I am definitely not. So, no, I just don't want it to turn into every single one of those businesses looking like,
Well, and again,
and most of them wouldn't change
Exactly.
what they're gonna do, I get that too.
Yeah, and you also have to keep in mind, like the pawn shop up at the corner is probably adhering to any new code that we could write.
Yep.
That doesn't make it an attractive looking business, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Right,
Some uses are all right.
so yeah, I think.
You know,
that's-
you can still use bright bubble letters as long as you pay good money for them.
Yeah, true.
Okay, yeah.
Does anybody have anything else they'd like to say about signage tonight?
Be well.
Does anyone have any
Oh, I got
old or
something
new
else.
business?
Might as well sit tight. No, I'm kidding. I have an easy one. Okay, so I have done the NCC meeting, which is and nobody may volunteer for this, so I'm gonna make this quick. The NCC meeting is basically, and actually it's not, it's the commercial part of like, what you do not want us to talk about during our council meetings anymore.
The Northland?
So there's the Northland
Northland
community,
community.
okay, but then there's the commercial side of it, okay?
Commercial side of the Northland community.
Yeah, whatever it is, it's a meeting that happens once a month, it's the last Wednesday of every single month.
Like an economic development discussion?
You got it. So I get mailed out all these different things and then they have these discussions about it and it's a lot of like HOAs that are involved, okay? I'm the only mayor that's there. It's a lot of HOAs that give their opinions on, you know, whether or not they could put an apartment complex here or Sheets, signage that they wanted to use was a 3-hour conversation the other night. I thought I was gonna just die. All I can tell you is they run 4.5 to 5 hours and I don't have the time for it.
No.
I'm just gonna tell you. I'm looking for a volunteer. They are gonna eventually be back in person. We really need to at least attend 2 a year. I've done one. And this is my second one that was almost 5 hours. And I'm just gonna tell you, nothing involved us. One had, so
More about the
there are,
surrounding
because, yeah, there are people in the village that have determined that they believe that we should be involved in it.
I have,
Um,
Well, who's
I
that?
have a name for you that we'll discuss at the end of the meeting.
Okay,
I
so
think it
if
could be
there
a
is-
great idea or a really funny idea. We'll figure out.
Okay, well, I'm just looking for a volunteer that wants to go to at least 2 of them a year. I mean, and if they really like it, they can go.
I can tell you the way you described it.
So if you like watching paint dry for 5 hours,
So, but someone like, Jenny Leal, or Jenny Lynn.
yeah,
She might, like, she's probably already going to those meetings. because-
no, there's not. Trust me, there's only 13 of us that are willing to spend 5 hours because I've done it twice now and there's nobody volunteering to do it.
Okay.
I was gonna say, the people that are, that feel that we should be involved, I mean, do they have to be a part of?
No,
If there's no-
No,
has to be-
they absolutely- they
Come on.
don't, but you know, the issue that I have with it is extremely time consuming when you do these particular meetings and I have council meetings and I have all of those and then I actually do work.
Don't they just,
Um,
I'm sorry, don't they produce their minutes out or do you?
Well, in order to, they want you to at least attend 2, like it is, they really want you to do 2, but outside of that, yes. But, you know, I think for me, if there was something, I would be more apt to doing it if there was something that was anything that was remotely around here, but we're talking like Hamilton Road, Warner Road.
I've been saying this.
I know, I knew that this wasn't gonna go over well, but I'm looking for a volunteer, if anybody knows anybody that can give up 5.5 hours on a Wednesday, last Wednesday of the month, that has, you can, but it's gonna be in person, so you can't go to sleep.
I might have somebody who.
Okay, so that was a old business, new business, because it does have to do with planning and zoning, just not around here.
If I can ask.
Yes.
So, and I understand coming from that realm, you know, but this is community driven, this isn't staff, it's not there, right? Or-
All I know is everybody kept telling me that I needed to go, and I'm the one that they send all the information to, and I'm over it.
So my feeling on this, Mayor, quite frankly, is that, look, if you should stay aware of what they're necessarily doing, because having attended Columbus is gonna redo a lot of their stuff anyways in the coming years, because these community groups have become extraordinarily unwieldy, and having been through a few of them for private clients, they're very difficult groups to deal with because they're not staffed and they're all over the place, you know, and they don't understand the economic development side of what Columbus's goals are.
Okay.
So the problem I've got with sending someone from the community, if there's something in the nearby vicinity that's happening that definitively affects us, what we would typically do is, you know, somebody can review minutes from these meetings, and then we would talk, if something was gonna affect us in a
Right.
positive or a negative manner, which is more the reason, we would talk to Columbus staff at that point to say, hey, dude, you know,
Right.
what is happening?
And without sounding like I'm better than anybody else or anything like that, but I do have a real estate background, so when
Yeah.
I'm sitting here listening to these people that are from, you know, just basically a volunteer from an HOA, it is extremely painful listening to them basically tell these people that they can't do certain things because of, and I'm just sitting here going, oh my god, I can't believe I'm doing it. So
Very wasteful time.
it's something that, again, I feel like if it was a group of, I mean, it's an economic development type thing, and, you know, so I don't wanna say, I know this is
But
a
not
public
guided by
record,
staff.
so, no,
That's
so,
the problem.
I think that's been my issue with it, is I feel like it's 5 hours of my life I'll never get back, and had it been something that would have affected us, I would have been much more involved in it, but it's, It hasn't been, so at that, and maybe that's something you and I can talk about, but getting another volunteer to go do it, and,
Minutes.
or just,
Said
yeah.
is you just keep track of what they're doing and then
Right,
figure
and
out
I do
when you
get-
need it.
Well, and I do get everything in the mail, like I don't know why, but they use my home address, but they all mail me packets, and so I know, like, we don't get the agenda until like 24 to 48 hours before, but usually 2 weeks before I start getting the packets in the mail, so I know what's gonna be discussed well in advance. So, it's just, the closest thing that I can remember is there was something, that new, like senior center or something like that that's going in right next to Walgreens, yeah. That was been one of the closest ones that they've discussed around us.
I know in the past,
I was
prior
there.
to my arrival, obviously when the Myers changed over.
Right.
That was a big deal.
Right.
And the former mayor was involved with that.
And I would be totally involved in something like that, but this is not, I mean,
No,
again,
that is not
Hamilton Road, and there has been there's been quite a few. There was one off of Cooper Road that was a house
Yeah.
that was doing something. So again,
Cooper?
it was right off of Cooper Road, but it was a house that was trying to do something about, I can't even remember what it was, but that was one of my 5-hour nights.
But that was in City of Columbus again.
Yeah, so again, if, we'll talk. So that was just one of those, like, get me out of here, get me out of that jail.
Yeah, sorry, Mayor, this is no fun.
Any more old business?
No, that was old business and new business rep.
All in one.
Well, I just, when you guys were talking about OSU partnering with them, so when we had the issue with the lilies come up, I had contacted Jones Fish down in Cincinnati. They have a branch up here.
They're the go-to people for fishing.
Right, and they did say that, I think it's like $45 or something, they would have a consultant come out and consult with us on on stocking the pond.
I've met with the
Okay.
guy a couple years ago already.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Well, but there was the question when we were out at the other ponds about,
If it was
will this
good.
take fish, will it not, can we, and they know fish, that's kind of like their business, so, if we wanted to have.
They
a
got an
consultant-
office at Bush and 161, they're just right.
So I just thought I'd let everybody know if that is something that you want to do, that's available to be done.
I would love
That's a
to.
serious consideration, stocking the ponds for fishing.
I think it's a great thing to talk about. The only other thing that I wanted to point out, I told Eric this, and I was gonna go take a picture. I invite everybody to go walk past the second lake, past the lily. I can't remember if we named it or if whatever, the which one is it?
Quiet Brook?
Yeah.
Quiet Brook.
Like,
If anybody hasn't been by there recently, go look at your cattails all the way around it now. It is getting bad. It went from this to this,
Well, how's the
and
algae and funk going on? Is that
not as bad, but if you keep letting it go, the entire pond is going to be cattails.
Cattail.
And that is going to be a long-term issue, unless that's what you guys want to happen, but I give it 6 more
Can you
months.
just go in there with the weed eater once a year?
Or a year.
I think I pulled it, guys.
So, but I invite you guys to go look at it, because if that's something that we have discussed and we didn't really want it to turn into that, it's about to turn into that. So if it's something that you guys want us to look at, or whatever, I invite you guys to revisit that pond and see how quick.
How are you keeping up with cutting the grass?
He's been doing all right.
Is he handling
I mean, here's where I'm at, there's nothing we can do about it. I've reposted the ad again. I haven't had one email, not one. So if anybody knows anybody looking for a maintenance job, $14 to $16 an hour, basically cutting grass, let me know. Anybody 18 and over.
I mean, there's like fast food places that are hiring for like $15 an hour right now.
it? I mean, that's what I'm thinking, unfortunately.
It's riding a lawnmower though, I mean, how much different is it than?
Well, obviously,
It's-
$15, you can get 15 anywhere,
At least fast food places being air conditioned.
Well, we got lifeguards floating down there at $10 an hour. We've got more than anybody in the city,
I
so.
mean, that's my problem with the work I do. I
Here's-
can't find
here's-
anybody.
well,
And
well,
then to
Tony-
get them, I can't afford to pay them.
You're on council, but I'm gonna tell you, we have officers that are making $22 an hour, so it's kinda hard to put your maintenance person way higher.
Well, that's a whole nother, well, you're into a topic about, getting the police paid.
Well, and you guys are about to hear some stuff coming up there too. But again, it boils down to, and you're not wrong. I mean, no, you're absolutely not wrong. My aunt owns a business and they actually were paying $12 an hour and they're up to 18 within 12 months. So, and that was just to get one person hired. They can't even fill the rest of the
Well,
positions. They had,
what would you think about having teenagers doing it?
Well, you mean like mowing?
Yeah.
I can
think
have
you get-
17, I can
you
have
think that, like-
17.
I think you get into some
Is there a
tricky
way-
liability. I know they don't, as an example, most
Like an
businesses.
insurance company?
I haven't even been able to find 17-year-olds.
Yeah, so,
Well, I'm just, I mean, but isn't that was advertised? Did it, you gotta be 18?
I'm looking for anybody.
Forced not.
yeah.
No, so Tony, that is, if you would put that on your list, and just so you know, I mean, I have already had that discussion with Kim, that, you know, even with the new building and everything, you can't continue to raise our maintenance people and all of that and not have a discussion about the police department when we have officers that are literally making $22 an hour.
Well, that's, I'm with you. Well, we'll get into that. I'm sure we're about to get into that conversation.
Yeah.
Yep.
Could you waive a resident's income tax if they mowed for us?
At this point, I'm gonna raise, I don't have authorization to do this because Tony's sitting here, but at this point, I'm so desperate.
No, I'm just like, I'm just wondering if there's
I don't know that you can.
somebody with some downtime, turn them into a TIF. And just,
That is,
I don't know that you can do that.
and just say, you know what? You mow for us and you don't pay any income
I brought
tax.
lifeguards in to help maintenance, is what I'm gonna tell you, because
Yep.
I do have some 17-year-olds that I can bring in. It's just trying to, they all play football, lacrosse, then they're working at the, John would kill me if I took his lifeguards, and so, but no, we've actually brought in the lifeguards to do some maintenance work, and that's worked well. We have a couple 16-year-olds that would cut grass, 15-year-olds that would cut grass, but as a liability, I'm not, even if our insurance, I'm not willing to do that, to be honest. I mean, at 17 I would do. Insurance is,
Knives, things like
yeah.
that below
Yeah.
certain ages, you gotta be careful.
because we've got the weed eater, we have the push lawn mowers, we do have all of that, so that makes me a little nervous with anybody at 17 and over. I'm comfortable with. The other part to that is being able to drive the UTV and being able to do all of that. I'm fine with any 17-year-old, as long as they have a valid driver's license. So 17 and over, anybody know anybody? But yeah, I mean, it's $14 to $16 an hour is where it's at right now. And the issue is if I hired, then I would have to raise our other maintenance person because he's been here for 2 years and he is working in that range. So how do you pay a supervisor less than the new person? And no, and you are completely right. The amount of money that we pay a lot of our staff is not adequate by any stretch, but I will tell everybody that the lifeguards don't make minimum wage for the first time ever. I mean, I was able to get that done, and that's only because we're doing okay at the pool, because I'm not gonna put the pool in debt. That's the one thing everybody knows about me. I watch those numbers, but we weren't paying lifeguards $8 an hour. I'm not doing it. So we did bump them up. So, not drastically. I mean, they're still making, I think I'm allowed to say it, $10 an hour. That's it. That's all those lifeguards are making.
How many hours do they work? Just curious.
One of them had 76 hours for 2 weeks.
It's getting towards the 80.
Yeah, 40 and 4. I mean, some of them are working up to 40 hours, close to 40 hours. The pool is open from noon to 8. We have 3 to 4 lifeguards that rotate. We have office staff. We have the pool manager, and this weekend we actually had to turn people away. So
That's a good problem to have.
It was busy. It was all of the above. But yeah, we are. I'm trying to get some people into at least some. I mean, even teenagers. I'm sorry, they don't deserve $8 an hour to work anywhere. So.
So funny. If the Giant Eagle pay, is paying my kids $12 each an hour, and my son was pissed because my daughter got a $500 bonus for starting her job this year. He didn't get that last year.
No, and no, that's the other part. I
The
mean,
incentives are insane, right?
they are. I'm about to go. Trust me, if I had an incentive, I'd go start cutting grass.
If
But
you stick around for 30 days, you get $1,000, like, that's some of the plants I go into, you get $1,000 if you stay for 30 days.
it's crazy. I mean, how do you compete with that when you're paying
Where's
$14 an hour?
Cary, Ohio.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
I grew up in Finland.
Oh, did you?
Well, outside of Finley, about 6 miles, close to here.
All right, guys, we done here.
I'm done.
Adjourned.
It's all right.